Hello, everyone. Loving blessings to you all. Hope you've all had a lovely Thursday. Had a beautiful day. It was beautiful and sunny. You wouldn't think it was winter here where I live. So I went out and had a beautiful day in the sun. It was absolutely lovely. It felt like spring. So today we are touching on prophecy still. Yesterday it was the Middle East in prophecy. Today we have Russia. So I managed to find all my little booklets that go into prophecy in these nations that are part of prophecy as we know it. So we're going to start in Russia in the 1990s. So what had happened was the Cold War had just ended. The USSR was no more. And we're looking at today, Russia today. So through the renewed winds of a dangerous future now crucially blown in our faces, hostile national sentiments have been returning. That Russia basically would like to go back to how it was when it was the USSR. So anyway, we are entering into circumstances similar to the lead up to World War II? Back then, as Hitler encroached on his neighbours, with the German people cheering him on, no one was willing to stop him. We all know how the end of that story went, with 60 million people dead. Now, in 1990, the Soviet leader at the time had actually warned in in an article that he was written up in. And he had warned in 1999 that Russia and European powers over Ukraine could erupt into major conflict, even a nuclear exchange. It's still going on, isn't it? Okay. So, desire to see Russia's empire restored. So, in Russia, the sudden loss of the Soviet Empire overnight has not been forgotten. To many older Russians, former Soviet citizens, this was a humiliating loss. Today, many Russians, including younger people, want their empire back and the legendary greatness of their country restored. President Putin believes his mission is to steer Russia towards its past glory as a global superpower. It is a big part of what's going on in Ukraine at the moment. Having this former Soviet country lean towards the West, towards NATO, rekindles old security fears in Russia. Okay, so just going a bit forward here. Some cheeky hot chocolate. Okay, so where does Russia fit into end time prophecy? So, God said in Isaiah chapter 46, verses 9 and 10, "Remember the former things of old, for I am God and there is no other. I am God and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times, things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. That is, whatever he pleases. Only he knows for sure what the future holds." The Apostle Peter wrote of the prophetic word, which you do well to heed as a light that shines in a dark place, until the day dawns, the morning star rises in your hearts, knowing this first, that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation or origin, for prophecy never came by the will of men, but holy men of God spoke as they were moved by the Holy Spirit. And that's taken from 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 19 and 20. So the Bible can be viewed as a sort of time machine in a sense, faithfully describing from God's point of view events in the past, present, and future. Okay. Although prophecy had much to say about events that followed in ancient times, there is one period still ahead that it refers to more than any other. That time is referred to in the scriptures by several terms such as the end times, end days, later days, last days. God reveals what will happen during this period immediately before the second coming of Christ. Of course, he is able to know what will happen far in the future and knows what nations will be involved during this crucial time. And one of them, from the historical geographical description gives in the Bible, it appears to be Russia. In this regard, it is important to note that when prophecies are mentioned in the scriptures, they are usually given from the reference point of the Holy Land, the land of Israel, and its capital, Jerusalem. God describes this as the place to which Jesus Christ will one day return to rule the earth. The prophet Zechariah even mentions where Christ will place his feet when he descends on this planet. Then the Lord will go forth and fight against these nations as he fights in the day of battle. And in that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. That's from Zechariah chapter 14, verses 3 to 4 and 9. So where does Russia fit in? From the geographical description given in a biblical prophecy, there is a strong indication that Russia will play a significant role in the end time events. Let's see a description of the end time in the book of Daniel, which refers to a number of the nations involved. Notice that it is in Daniel chapter 11:40 to chapter 12 verse 3. At the time of the end, the king of the south, from the perspective of the Holy Land, shall attack him, a king of the north. And the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, horsemen, many ships, and he shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. He shall also enter the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape from his hand: Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon. He, the king of the north, shall stretch out his hand against the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. He shall have power over all treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. Also the Libyans and Ethiopians shall follow at his heels. But news from the east and the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go out with great fury to destroy and annihilate many. And he shall plant the tents of his place between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and no one will help him. At that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book, and many of those who sleep in the dust on earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. It is important to include these last few verses in the context between some Bible interpretations. I believe this section is actually talking about a time in the past. But as you can clearly read, these events are referring to the last days from shortly before Jesus Christ returns to the resurrection of the dead at his coming. Okay, so you've got to compare 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 22 to 23, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16. Something that has not happened yet with Thessalonians, apparently. So we have in this section a glimpse of end-time conflict between several alliances of nations, one led by a ruler called the King of the South, another known as the King of the North, and then forces to the east and the north, or possibly northeast, for which there is no equivalent Hebrew term of the Holy Land that will eventually enter the fray. We cover this prophecy of Daniel in more depth in our free study guide, Middle Eastern Prophecy. Okay, sorry, I wasn't meant to put that bit there. Okay, so during the time in which Daniel wrote this prophecy, the region of the King of the North was governed by the Persian Empire. Then it was conquered by the Greek Empire, which is subsequently absorbed by the Roman Empire. Although the original Roman Empire collapsed in 476 AD, there have been periodic revivals in Europe all the way through to the 20th century, often called the Holy Roman Empire or the equivalent term. For instance, the alliance of Adolf Hitler and Mussolini, who proclaimed in Italy that he was restoring a version of the ancient Roman Empire, eventually led to the worldwide bloodshed that was known as World War II. So this King of the North, the final revival of the European-centered Roman Empire, called the Beast in the book of Revelation, is destined to arise, and as we understand it, one last time at the time of the end. The final superpower, missed that bit. After being provoked, the European rulers' forces will sweep down and occupy the lands, and a final king of the south. We can see from Daniel 11 that the end-time king of the south will be a leader commanding a confederation of nations, predominantly to the south of Israel, but also stretching to the east and west, since the scriptures name several of them: Edom, Moab, Ammon, their ancient territory now making up a large part of modern Jordan, Egypt, Libya, and Ethiopia. Oh, here comes my dog chugging along. Note that the scripture says this reign that many countries will be overthrown, including Israel, implying it can encompass other nations in the general vicinity east, south, and west of Israel. No, baby girl. That are not mentioned by name. The two common factors in the particular countries mentioned, expecting the glorious land of Israel, are that they are mostly of Arab descent and their religion is Islam. It appears that this confederation of the South is made up of mainly Arab nations with Islam as their religion, perhaps a reborn Islamic Salafate. I think that's how you say it. Long the dream of millions of Muslims. It is also the dream of many Muslims to conquer Europe, reliving the glorious days of early Islamic empires that invaded and in some cases held for centuries parts of Spain, Portugal, France, Eastern Europe, Sicily, and Italy. Over recent years, several Muslim leaders and religious figures have boasted of their desire to capture Rome, which they see as the seat of Europe and Christianity, the conquest of which in their minds would prove the superiority of Islam over Christianity. Now that's concerning. And as I go through this series with you, you'll understand how Rome is not all that it is cracked up to be in the Catholic Church, and that'll be unfolded as we go on. And again, we come down to that war between Islam and Christianity that's been going on for a long, long time. Um, other non-Arab countries like Pakistan, possessing dozens of nuclear warheads, and Iran, which may soon have them, are also almost entirely Islamic, as are the Arab nations that could come together to prevent Iranian dominance over them. It should be recalled that several militant strains of the Islamic religion took many in the West by surprise, such as Al Qaeda and the so called Islamic State, for a while disrupting a large part of the world stretching from the Atlantic coast of North Africa all the way to Afghanistan and India. Their power and reach was greatly diminished and nearly crushed by Western intervention. In some cases, years after of bloody conflict against both local populations and foreign fighters. Nevertheless, the swift, can't speak again today, rise of ISIS illustrates how the right conditions can summon believers from all over the globe into a major force if they believe the course is righteous. Now that last bit there is so alarming, because I don't know what's happening where you are, but I know a lot of countries at the moment, and especially here in Australia, we are just influxed with high immigration from all these countries that I mentioned. So that's very concerning and very alarming. Um, yeah, and it's everywhere, all through England, the UK, Ireland. It's just everywhere. Europe. So all these things that I just read are happening, and it's so alarming. So yeah, prophecies predicted it, and it's happening in every country around the world. Well, I don't know about every country, but yeah, a couple of the big ones. Anyway, news from the east and the north. Sorry, just had a hot chocky. Sorry about that. Where Russia seems to come into the picture in Daniel's prophecy is the indication that after the king of the north invades the Holy Land, news from the east and the north shall trouble him. Now that's from Daniel 11, verse 44. Since several nations in this region will be invaded and conquered by the king of the north, there is naturally going to be a reaction from major powers of the north and to the east, and again, possibly northeast of that region. To the east of the Holy Land lies a large swath of Muslim nations that would be increased at a takeover of Islam's third holiest city, Jerusalem. Among them are Jordan, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, and United Arab Emirates, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and several predominantly Muslim nations from the former Soviet Union, plus India, Indonesia, where there are 20 million Muslims in each of those countries. That's very concerning. To the north of the Holy Land are yet more Muslim nations, Lebanon, Syria, Turkey, plus areas of Russia with large Muslim populations. Any European-led invasion of the Holy Land, as foretold in this prophecy, would be viewed by Muslims in these regions as another crusade against Islam. Although that sounds odd to Western ears, it is exactly what Muslims termed the US-led invasion of Iraq and of Afghanistan. In the minds of millions of Muslims, the Crusades never ended, and Islam remains at war against Christianity in a battle for supremacy. as we have seen reflected in the words and actions of many jihadists today. Alarming. No doubt a Western takeover of Jerusalem and the Holy Land would rally many Muslims to fight and throw out the Crusaders, exactly as happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, leading to humiliating Western withdrawals and resulting chaos as militant Islamic groups sweep into the void. Okay. So, a look at a map shows that beyond these Muslim nations and above the Middle East, the east of the area of the European King of the North, there is only one major power, and that is Russia. Moscow is almost due north of Israel, and if correct translation of the verse in question is the northeast, that still fits Russia, and its territory stretches further to the east than any other Asian power. But the prophecy does not limit the involvement to one nation, and it seems likely that a group of Asian nations would be involved. Those mentioned above, plus what is now the dominant nation in Asia, China. We'll see more about this in another prophecy momentarily. Now, I do have a booklet on that one, so it should be added that Russia has intensified interest in the Middle East for political, economic, military, and religious reasons. In the last 200 years, a historical pattern has emerged when European powers have sought to conquer the Middle East sooner or later. Russia will usually get involved since this region significantly affects its national interests. So, the kings from the east. Again, Daniel in chapter 11, verse 44, tells us that the news from the east will greatly trouble the king of the north. What might this be referring to? The book of Revelation, expanding the aspects of Daniel prophecy, describes two major troop advances involving the Euphrates River, the ancient boundary between Roman Empire and adversaries to the east. No doubt these movements from the east will be in response to the takeover of the Holy Land by the King of the North, and in retaliation for a months-long campaign of torment with apparently advanced weaponry conducted by European beast forces, referred to in Revelation 9 as the first of the three woes. That's verses 1 to 12. The Eastern powers will form a massive 20 million, the Eastern powers will form a massive 200 million man army and will launch an apparent counterattack called the Second Woe, when a third of mankind will be killed, evidently through the unleashing of weapons of mass destruction. That's from Revelation chapter 9, verses 13 to 18. Then later, just before the returning Jesus Christ descends to earth, a force led by the kings, rulers from the east, will cross the Euphrates, then dried up, which it is drying up currently. Yeah, it's currently drying up. In the 6th of the 7 last plagues, these collectively referred to as the third woe, and that's from Revelation 16, verse 12. So, as I mentioned yesterday, the book of Revelation has so much symbology. So, yeah, the plagues are another one. They mean something. They do mean something to do with worldly events today and stuff like that. What's going on? As noted above, from the east of the Holy Land are a large number of Muslim nations. Even further east are the major powers of India, China, Jordan, plus other Islamic nations such as Indonesia and Malaysia. Some of these nations could likely form an alliance since the Middle East also concerns their national interests. Middle Eastern oil is very important to some of them, and those of the Islamic faith in Asia look to Jerusalem, Mecca, and Medina in Saudi Arabia as their holy cities. Clearly, it would be acceptable to them to see their holy cities threatened with takeover by European power. Also, with the European force ruling at least a part of the Middle East, the balance of power and wealth would now be shifted and tilted against these powers. Another possibility for the identity of these Eastern forces should be China, as they often share common, this is China and Russia, often share common economic, political, and economic interests. In fact, a great many of these Asian nations, including the Asian Muslim nations, are already formally aligned together in a bloc called the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, dominated by China. It should be noted that a prophecy in Ezekiel ties many of these countries together in a coalition against Israel, some while after Christ's return, but it is reasonable to see them tied together even prior to his coming. Any number of factors could draw these Asian powers into the Middle East conflict, such as a threat to oil supplies and vital sea lanes, or any sense that a powerful Europe is bent on expanding its power eastward. China and India, with populations of around 1.44 and 1.38 billion people, respectively, could certainly contribute to a huge military force, and Russia's military power and technology are still formidable. It should be noted that the Asian powers and others around the world may initially submit to European economic and military dominance to the extent as Revelation presents, all the world as effectively worshipping or being pro-state before the beast, or Babylon as it is called, but that will not last. Okay. So, the good news for Russia and the rest of the world. So, yet there is good news in the end for Russia and the rest of the world. Jesus Christ is returning to put an end to human politics, greed, and war. One of the most encouraging scriptures in this regard is found in Isaiah chapter 2, verses 2 to 4, which is regarded is in this regard is found which describes what will happen after this time of global turmoil ends and Christ comes to rule the nation. Okay, so these verses from Isaiah chapter 2, 2 to 4. Now it shall come to pass in the later days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established on top of all mountains, and should be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. Many people shall come and say, Come and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his path. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord for Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations, and rebuke many people. They shall beat their swords and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Remarkably, the Soviet Union represents a statue representing this passage to the United Nations. But man, despite his best attempts, has not been able to achieve peace on his own. Thankfully, God will bring the peace mankind has so long to sought. So, thankfully, God will bring the peace man has long sought. So, as it, I don't know if they still say it in Catholic sermons. They used to, when I was a Catholic, they used to say, Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ will come again. And yeah, he will be coming again. It's been prophesied. In the Old Testament, they were waiting for their Messiah. They had such faith that their Messiah was coming. And then when he did come in the New Testament, Jesus Christ, they wanted to believe what they were seeing and hearing and seeing the miracles and loving the teachings that he was giving. They followed him, the crowds got bigger, and but they were expecting a military king, not Jesus Christ. And what did they do? They killed him. And it wasn't until they executed him on that cross and his resurrection, when he did rise again 3 days later, that's when they knew he was the Messiah. He told them, he showed them, but they still failed to believe. Even though they could see things and hear things that they'd never seen or experienced before, they wanted it to be him, but they were expecting this righteous commander, military king, not Jesus Christ, the man hanging out with the outcasts. So yeah, as it says in the Catholic religion, Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ definitely will come again. And prophecy tells us, Old Testament, New Testament, and the book of Revelation and the book of Daniel tells us. And I can't wait for that day. I honestly cannot wait for that day for my Saviour to come and just do what he needs to do to restore this world to how he wanted it to be originally for us. So, yes, I hope you enjoyed. Love and blessings to you all, and may Christ's face shine upon you. God bless.